Hello and welcome to Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason and I'm joined by.
Fred and Keith, thanks for having us.
Yeah. We're going to do more NBA talk today because baseball sinks ratings, I've learned, and I don't know what else to talk about. But I think we need to start with next year's presumed number one overall pick, who is currently playing scrimmage games against Team USA, which is, the best players in the world, presumably, and that's Cooper Flag. And Keaton, you want to give us a little Cooper Flag preview?
Yeah, be glad to. So, Cooper Flag, he's a 17-year-old kid out of Maine, um, you know, basketball powerhouse. And the kid came not really out of nowhere, but really came to light a couple of years ago. AAU circuit, just playing for his main team, and then played for the best high school team in the country, playing for Montverde in Florida. Took off there, and then has just been tearing it up in every camp. USA basketball. He's the best player. He reclassified and just was immediately the number one kid in this upcoming class. Committed to Duke. He'll be a one and done there, and it's really hard to imagine that he's not the number one pick next year. Everything that I've gotten to see from him has been awesome. He's got the full package. The dude is just as good defensively as he is offensively. He's an extreme competitor. I saw a clip of him today playing against the U.S. team where he got a rebound or he got a block, but then got the rebound off of it, made a headman pass up to Holiday or somebody for a three, or not Holiday, somebody on the select team for a three. They missed it, but then he had hustled up the floor and put back a putback and one over somebody on the, I don't know if it was Embiid or Davis, but got the team fired up, and it's just that's the type of player that he is, and doing that at 17 already,
And
he looks awesome.
and
He
six
looks
foot ten.
awesome.
He's already 6'10". Yeah, like when you go watch, like you said, there's some Instagram clips of him. There's some YouTube clips of him, and you can see why, as disappointed as everybody was with the 2024 draft. That's why everybody is anticipating this 2025 and then eventually the 2026 draft, because we got some. Cooper Flag looks like he could be. We're in a Wimbenyama world now, so that you're never going to be the best player in the world, but you'll have to fill out the top five at some point, and he seems like he has that legitimate potential from the scouts, and you know teams are going to be I think that's one of the reasons Utah is probably going to trade Marketing at some point, and other teams are probably going to unload some of their veterans to try to really get that best shot at the lottery. Because again, if you've got a player, and I think when we get into what we're going to talk about today, it'll make a lot of sense. Like you look at the last couple champions, you know, Brown and Tatum, Jokic, Giannis, LeBron, and AD. Like you need, I don't know, top 15 player minimum to win a title, probably at this point.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, and that's why we're going to see a couple of these teams, especially the few teams that we talked about today, um, quote unquote tanking, just because it. I think these last few years, I mean every year, but really the last couple of years have shown not just how important the team is around your stars, but
Yeah.
what stars you're building around and you're winning with. And I think you look at all the recent champions going back through, Giannis, Jokic, all these guys. Tatum last year, even though he didn't win MVP, he's still playing point guard. He's still guarding all five positions. He was still the best player on that team.
Oh yeah.
And you look at those guys, Flag, AJ, 26, like those guys look like they have the makeup to be those types of best players on the team, but also the leader, and guys who lead by example every game. We'll see.
Isn't it tough though? Like, I mean, we're talking Flag 17 now. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the crazy part about the NBA versus others. Well, soccer maybe a little bit, right? Because they're getting kids in their system when they're in grammar school, and trying to like develop them or whatever. But I just there's certain times. I mean, just in the clip that you showed me, there's certain times where you can see like somebody's different. Somebody's got skills that really like stand out, and for him to be doing that against NBA talent, it really like shows you, especially when they talk about like some of these other guys who come out each year and they're like, oh, he's got all this potential. He didn't play well here and he didn't do well here, but he's got it. It's so rare that you see like when there's those excuses about like they don't stand out because of this reason and that reason. You see something like that and you're like, okay, this guy's legit. Like he's going to make a difference.
And just to put it in even further context, you're watching him scrimmage against LeBron, KD, Anthony Davis, Drew Holiday, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid. Like, he's scrimmaging against some of the best players in America right now, and he's standing out. So, I mean, and I'm sure none of those guys want to be shown up by a 17-year-old kid, especially one with all the hype around him, and because I feel like if I know your name in an upcoming draft before you played a minute of college basketball, like there's a lot of hype around you. Because I don't usually go that deep on people before that. So so that's it. So if you're an audience member and you have not seen him play, go just Google Cooper Flagg and watch a couple things, because that'll help you with the next part of the conversation. So what we decided to do for part of the podcast this week is to look at the 3 teams that are probably going to be some of the worst teams in basketball. They were the 3 worst teams last year, right? I think?
Yeah.
All right, and Fred, since we've taken up most of the oxygen for this first part, why don't you start with your team? Who did you pick? Or sort of...
I picked the Pistons, and, I don't know about you guys, but I actually, like, digging into the Pistons, I actually can see them competing for... Certainly, I think it's reasonable that they could compete for a play-in spot.
Okay.
But it's not crazy to say that they come in at like 7. They could top out around 7, which going from 15 to 7 would be a huge jump. But it starts with they bring Bickerstaff in as the coach, and I think like you look at his track record, and his teams typically perform well. You look at the Cavs. Cavs were number 3 seed last. Were they 3? No, 4. 4 seed.
They were top 4 seed for sure. Yeah, I don't know what it was like.
Yeah. They were 4 seed. Yeah, because I think Milwaukee fell to 3. So they were a 4 seed, and when you compare that team, the Cavs team, with Mitchell, Garland, Strus, Mobley, and Allen for most of the year, right? And you look at what they're going to have in Detroit to start this year. Cunningham, he's not Mitchell, but he's not far off.
I like Kate Cunningham quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Ivy versus Garland. If Ivy's going to be the star, I don't know if Ivy would be a starter because they brought in Beasley. But either way, certainly not the same level as Garland. But again, not completely off the mark there.
Right.
Thompson versus Strus. I think the advantage is probably going to go to Thompson.
I think so.
Even though he's, but like what he can do on the court, he can't hit threes the way that Strus can. But like he can do a lot more for you.
Yep.
And then Tobias Harris, I think, was an underrated dude in Philly. I think kind of one of those glue guys. He did the same thing when he was in LA with the Clippers. And then Duran versus Allen. I think that's a pretty good comp right there.
I'd say so.
So I think when you look at those starting 5s, now I don't think that would project to a number 4 seed like the Cavs did this past year. But I certainly think it projects with a good coach to a team that is going to be competitive and competing for one of those, bottom, 7 through 10 spots. And that coaching thing, I touch on that a couple times because they gave the contract to the guy, I can't remember.
Monty Williams.
5-year deal, big money, and then after a year they fire him, right? Like there was just something wrong where like a lot of the young talent was not getting developed, even in that 1 year. Bickerstaff comes in, is going to have a totally different approach to that. Really going to be able to rebuild that team. Average age is 24. They're not super big, but about average height-wise, but they're not going to be outclassed by any team that they play. And if Cunningham stays healthy, I do think that's a team that's going to be hungry to win because they've been kind of embarrassed the last couple of years, right?
They have.
We'll see. They brought in 2 rookies, Klinsman and I forget. I'm blanking on who the other guy is. Oh, Holland, Ron Holland. He's got a lot of hype and G League experience, so it's not like he was just playing against college. But so all those things, and on top of that, the one thing that's kind of like a weird little curveball in the whole equation is the fact they got a brand new owner, very wealthy guy, and we've seen it over and over again. Phoenix, the Clippers. You get some super wealthy guy who's really competitive. It doesn't necessarily mean championships, but it means that the team's going to be pretty competitive pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And the NBA. Maybe not in the NFL. Like, we can talk about, like, the Carolina Panthers, which we won't do, but it doesn't always translate in the NFL. But in the NBA, like, I think that mix puts them in a spot where they could truly be competing for a playoff berth.
So then, do you see Cade Cunningham as like a potential top 20 type player? Like, he would be in the discussion. I mean, I know if we probably named all the names, he wouldn't end up in the top 20, but it's somebody that you could, argue for number 18 or 19. Do you see him as that level of player?
He's in that ballpark. I mean, when you think about it that way, there's 30 teams in the league, right? So you take the best player off of each team, conceivably.
Yeah.
Take the best player off of each team, and then rank them. There's definitely. I think he's better than anybody on Utah. I think that you could make the argument as Cade Cunningham as good as what you're going to get out of somebody like a Kawhi Leonard. Only factoring in like the injury history when Kawhi's healthy, obviously he's the top guy. But with what you're going to get from Kawhi this year versus what you're going to get from Cunningham, again, if he stays healthy, I would not feel comfortable committing to 20, but I would say top 25, yes.
Okay, well because like we talked a little bit before we started podcasting, like. We looked at the past champions. You had Brown and Tatum, who were definitely top 20 players, right? I don't know where they would rank necessarily, but I think both those guys are top 20. Giannis, Jokic, LeBron and AD, Steph a couple more times, Steph with KD. You get on LeBron. Like, I mean, you need a great, it's very rare that you have what year was the Pistons that won, or the Miami Heat team that had, some. You typically need a top 15, top 20 guy to really compete. So, yeah. So you see the Pistons as a potential playoff team. I went in a very different direction. I took the Portland Trailblazers happily. So the Portland Trailblazers roster is Jeremy Grant, Higgins, Scoot Henderson, who's been a pretty big disappointment, who I was pretty high on. Who else do we really want to highlight? Shaden Sharp, Anthony Simons, Tybal. You still got Robert Williams on this team, who I don't think is going to finish. I think you'd want to get here's my plan, and you drafted Klingon, and you got Demi Avdija, who I do like, and I think he's got potential. You got DeAndre Ayton on this team, who's still around. So I think you've got a hodgepodge of players that I think could help other teams. But when I look through this roster, Klingon aside, because I think Klingon's going to be a nice pro, not a super great guy, I don't see Portland doing anything other than competing for, at best, the 10th best record in the West. And I don't even know if they're that good with what they have on paper. If I was the GM, I would want to get rid of Jeremy Grant. I'd want to get rid of the combination of Robert Williams, because he's always hurt. I think he's a player people would like. I think Tybal has, I could trade him for a second-round pick to a playoff contender. I think I could move on from... I think somebody would probably take a flyer on Ayton, who needs some rim protection. Maybe even Philly would give you a second-round pick to have a backup center to, somebody that's not... I don't know. And then I would probably take one of those 3 guards. I'd probably hold on to Scoot, but either Shaden Sharp or Anthony Simons I'd probably look to move on from too. And I would just probably put all my bags on the Cooper flag basket and try to get that number 1 overall pick. I don't like the makeup of most of this team. is the conclusion I came to.
So you're thinking they don't really have a shot for this year?
No, I don't think they have anybody that could be one of the two best players on a championship team. Like, I think they have some fun players. I like Sharp. I like Simons. I still, like I said, I have hope for Cooper, for Scoot. I think Scoot had a really bad year last year. He did not look good. He looked out of place. But I mean, and I think the jury's still out on Advia. But I'm looking through this roster and I just don't see a great team. And I don't see a lot of potential, and I see a lot of redundancy where they have like 4 centers on this team. They have 4 guards that can all score, but none of them are really point guards. And then you've got, an overpaid Jeremy Grant who is probably going to get you 4 or 5 more wins than you'd want if you're going for the number 1 overall pick. But I would have nobody like, normally if you're a rebuilding team, there'd probably be a block where you're like, this guy is off limits. I would not have anybody on my roster off limits if I'm Portland.
Oh yeah, you can't. I think it's tough to. They're stacked up against it just because, or for the simple fact that the West is so competitive. I mean,
yeah.
You look at the teams from last year, other than the Clippers, who I would be shocked if they're in the playoffs. Like most of those teams are just going to be right back there, and then you think of all those other teams. Sacramento is going to be fighting for a spot. You go through the whole list. The West is so competitive. It's going
Houston,
to be
Sacramento,
Lakers.
Memphis. Yeah, I mean, it's a stacked conference. And like I said, there's just nobody on this team that I love. I guess Klingon would be my one guy I probably wouldn't trade because I just drafted him. But for the right price, like I said, I'd be wide open for business with this team. And I would actively be trying to trade a couple of my centers. And I would actively be trying to trade Jeremy Grant. Because I think he's got some. And then, like I said, probably either Sharp or Simons because I feel like they're somewhat redundant. They're both shooting guards. They're both a little bit in for themselves and going for their own business a lot. But I think in bad teams, you end up with bad habits. But I think they could be a really good 6-man or somebody on a good team. And I would just be looking for draft capital and putting all my money and getting one of the good players coming out.
Do you know what they have for cap space?
The only big cap hit they have right now is Jeremy Grant and Robert Williams make a little bit. But other than that, they're not bad. They're in pretty good shape. And then they do owe they can't trade any picks because they owe the Bulls a first-round pick. But it's lottery protected through 2028. So and then it becomes like 2 seconds or whatever it is. So I assume as long as they're bad, they don't have to worry about losing their own pick.
I wonder if they would be a team because you hear about like the Heat can't find a suitor for a guy like Hero because of his contract. Nobody wants to pay him anymore.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that could be a team. I feel like if you to give up Grant, you have to give up something with that or receive another big contract just because he hasn't been playing great. So I wonder if they would pair like one of those guards and Grant for Hero. Maybe sometimes the Heat are looking that's all if they keep Butler and want to compete and try to build around him and Bam again. But it's tough to find a trade partner for a guy like Grant, don't you think?
I do. I think the Heat are one of those places. Like I don't know what. Like again, they're an incredibly smart organization. They have lots of thoughts on that. But if they liked him at some point, because Jeremy Grant was a guy people liked at different points, right? And maybe if they feel like if you get him out of a situation in Portland where he's probably not in a city he likes. He's in a losing culture. If you bring him into Heat culture, maybe you could, all the things that got Jeremy Grant that contract in the first place, maybe you can get those things back out of him in a winning situation. And again, it's weird because sort of like, within the last decade, big men were a dime a dozen, right? And now you have to have a couple of bigs to really compete. And we've seen Robert Williams, the Time Lord, like when he's healthy, and I know that's the giant if with him, but he's a very functional player you can have out there. I think there's probably 4 or 5 GMs in the world that still believe in DeAndre Ayton. Maybe 3. I don't know. There's got to be some because he still has an insane amount of physical skill that we've never seen manifest.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that's very similar between the NFL and the NBA, right? Like a guy who's a top 10 pick gets a lot of opportunities
Yeah.
to fail. Just like first round, a top 10 quarterback, like, a quarterback taken in the top 15 picks in any year gets chance after chance, even if he's failed in like 3 different destinations. I mean, Josh Rosen still had I think it was still in flight even as last year. But that's just because he got picked top 10 one year, right? So it's very interesting. And I agree with you. I think that there would definitely be a suitor for Ayton somewhere.
And I think Time Lord too. I think especially if he can come out and be healthy. Like if you were a team in the West and you've got to go against Minnesota, Denver, Los Angeles, like if you could get, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes a game from Robert the Time Lord, like that's really good defensive shot blocking, rebounding minutes you're getting from your backup big, right?
Yeah, I think with a guy like that, exactly like you're saying, unfortunately with his injury history, you could only give up an asset for him, expecting it to be your backup big, like you're saying, where he's going to come in, play 12 to 20 minutes a game,
max,
right, but be a great rim protector for those games, and then you hope that he can play 60 games during the season.
Well, if you're Phoenix,
I guess you could only really honestly sell me on the fact that you'd be able to move him if I don't know how many years he has left on his contract. If he's only got 1 or 2 years left on the contract, then I think he's movable.
I think he only has 2 years if my research is correct. But I'm looking at a team like Phoenix that clearly still wants to compete with an owner that doesn't seem to give a crap about the second apron, third apron, fourth apron, and a team that desperately needs a little bit of size. If they throw him a 20, 30, because they need to make room for Klingon and start the rebuild. So if it's like a 2032 second round pick, like I said, if I'm Portland, I'm just taking it. Fine, get him off my, take him, whatever you got.
Yeah, I mean that's a great destination, in terms of options, because the thing you're looking at with Williams, who obviously we love because the guy started with the Celtics. And we got to see him kind of at his best and could see some of the potential that he had. But he's a guy that you're not going to count on for points. He's not taking a lot of shots. If he can put something back, do an alley-oop, that's his deal, right? So to your point, with Phoenix, where you got 3 dudes who are going to be taking 75% of the shots, if Beal's healthy. But with Beal, Booker, and Durant, you need to have other guys on the floor who aren't going to be upset about the fact that they're not getting shots.
Yeah.
So you're right. That would be a tremendous destination. Maybe even the Clippers.
Yeah. Well, I'm figuring, like I said, I know the Suns are all in. They need some size because they're not going to get through. The West is full of giants at this point. I mean, even you even got Hartenstein in Oklahoma now. So slightly overpaid Hartenstein, but Hartenstein.
It seems like a good plan. I don't know.
Part of it is I watched.
Portland's fan. I'm not very happy about it, but it seems like the right plan for that team.
I don't know how I would do it, but I would push out pictures of video of Cooper Flag on the Portland social media and just be like, hey, maybe, huh, and then just let that be the, that would be my shield from the public.
It's your only option at this point.
Yeah.
Flunking flag.
Yep.
Flunking the flag. Salute the flag. Whatever you want to say. Yeah. All right, we got one more team to go through. You ready?
Yeah. So I will. I'll give us all the great news on the Wizards. So the Wizards are in an interesting spot. They have been one of the worst teams, if not the worst, overall one of the worst teams over the last while now. But yet they are actually have the 3rd highest cap right now as of today, which is shocking.
That
when
is
you
shocking.
look at all of the All-Stars on their team. They just have some really gross numbers. Poole coming in at $29 million is just nasty, and Kuzma 23 is okay. Brogdon they just brought in at $22 million. Bagley they're paying him $12.5 million this year, and I get that you have to pay somebody, but that's just a rough cast to be at the top of your at the top of your salary table. I think that being said, there is some optimism for this team. I actually like them bringing in Brogdon, despite me mentioning him in the cap hit. I really like the Valanciunas ad. I don't know why more teams, especially competing teams, wouldn't have added a guy like him.
Yeah.
3 for 30 is an awesome deal. And when you look at this team's cap number, the fact that they were able to even bring him in is pretty impressive. So I think that with them, they've been rebuilding obviously for a while now, but it's not been working. In a way, I guess you just kind of have to reset the rebuild, and it seems like they're on the right path to doing that. Now, the right path started the other day, but them hiring the new coach, Brian Keefe, and paired with a good draft class. We'll see what we get from Sar. A lot of unknown with him, but a rim protector. And I think, honestly, him paired with Valanciunas, another foreign-born player, guy that he can learn from, especially how to be physical and everything, could be a solid duo inside. Good rim protection inside.
Sar's actually got the odds to be the, in all the sports books, all in sports books, got the odds to be the front runner for
Rookie of the year.
Yeah, and exactly. We'll see. Maybe he ends up starting over Valanciunas by the end of the year, but I don't know enough about Sar to project him being able to start with Valanciunas. I would think that it's still going to be either of them on the court at each time. But I like them at center. I like Kuzma as a forward. I think you have to know what you have in Coulibaly, their pick last year.
Yeah.
He's supposed to be an awesome defender. It has the tools to be a contributor on a team, but super raw, super young, and you just got to let him play. You just got to see what he is. And I like the idea if they were to pair him, a starting lineup of like Brogdon, Poole, Coulibaly, Kuzma, Valanciunas is not going to win many games. But I think if you're looking at a rebuild, it's a combination of some younger guys with, you look at Kisper off the bench. They have depth at center at big. I think, I don't know if I'm allowed to say Johnny Davis because of how much of a failure he has been, but he's still on the roster. I like the draft class they brought in behind Sar. I like Carrington out of Pitt, a bigger guard. I like, I think it's Keyshawn George. He tore up my Tar Heels when we played them in college, but that guy can score. And I like their young pieces. Paired with a couple of the older guys, I think guys like Brogdon and Valanciunas are valuable pros. I don't know where they're at in their careers, if they're looking to get traded to competing teams, but if they're going to be on the roster, I think they can. You have to have a team that's bought into the rebuild, and we'll see if these guys do it. One thing I like is that other than this upcoming year, other than 2025, they have all of their first-round picks. So they are not in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But hopefully they have their own first in 2026. And I was a little confused by trying to read it, but some kind of swap where they might end up with Phoenix's first-round pick as well, who I don't expect to be in the Divanza sweepstakes. But they could have 2 first-round picks in 2026. So this might be a few-year plan for them, but you have to find a way to lower the cap number. That's the number one thing. You're not competing for a championship this year. To focus on developing the young guys. It's tough because I'd love to say, hey, move Poole for whatever you can, but you're not going to get anything for him. Nobody wants him.
How many years are left on Poole's contract?
Sorry, what did you say, Jay?
Oh, how many years are left on Poole's contract? I was wondering that.
He's got 3 more years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say he's 29, and then it goes up. He's over 30 for the next 2. So you're stuck with him, Kuzma, and I just know Valanciunas is in there too, but I'm not counting him as part of this. But those 3 guys are all there for the next 3 years. But you're stuck with Poole unless he plays better. So your only hope, in my opinion, is to get anything out of him is you have to start him. Otherwise, he's not going to have the attitude to come off the bench and give you his best, especially boost his trade value. I would say move Kuzma depending on the deal. I think that Kuzma, in the grand scheme of things, depending on his buy-in, could actually be a guy that contributes to a championship team.
Yeah, he's a very solid player.
Yeah, he's a solid pro, and he's an athletic 6'9" big guy that can rebound, and it's just not that position is tough to find, especially guys that can play some defense and can score. So just because he might not fit your timeline, if you can get a good return for him, he might be worth moving. But he's not that old, so I wouldn't rush him out the door. But this is a team that you just have to focus on developing young guys, even though I don't think that they have a superstar on their roster. So that's why, it's hard to sit here and say, similar to the Trailblazers, like, hey, wait it out, hope you win the lottery. But you're only going to be able to win a championship if you have one of those top 15, maybe top 10 guys. And Washington isn't really in a position where they're going to be landing any free agents like that. They kind of missed the bill. Their one guy they had a chance on maybe in recent years was Durant because he was from DC.
Yeah.
But he's not going to be around for much longer. So this is a team, their best shot is to draft their guy, to home grow their guy. And they have to start by building, I think their best shot right now is by building the team around them. They have some good young pieces, and we'll see what they're able to do. But I'm interested what you guys think if they are able to do anything. When I was looking at the standings, there's really only, it seems like, 2 spots open in the top 10 in the East. And I think that if you go through them all, Boston, the Knicks, the Bucks, Cleveland, Orlando, Indiana, and Philly probably all wants to make the playoff, or at least the play-in next year. Hard to bet against Miami finding a way to make the play-in. And so Chicago and Atlanta are probably going to be falling out. There's a chance they could put together, 40 wins if guys like Brogdon and Valanciunas stay healthy, and you get a lot out of Poole. You get a lot out of Poole. But I'm not too optimistic. We'll see. What do you guys think?
Yeah, kind of similar to the deal with the Pistons. One of the reasons why you cannot have optimism for if you root for the Wizards, if you root for the Pistons, is because of just what you alluded to. Look at the teams ahead of you that you got to leapfrog to get into that play-in, right? The Bulls, they're selling everything, and they're trending down. The Hawks, you get rid of Murray, you still don't know if you have like a top tier guy, and we'll see what happens. They're very much a wild card. Charlotte, the Raptors, the Nets, like those are all teams that like you don't have, like I don't know that you would have any faith in any of those teams. So if you get a team that has like some decent chemistry and is working for their coach, like I definitely see it. Like you could make a move for a play-in.
Do you see any way that Jordan Poole is a salvageable player where he become an asset for anyone in the league? Because he really had, a couple of good backup years. And he had one really nice playoff run with the Warriors, and he's been kind of a disaster other than that. Like, is that just, do you think there's anything, is there something there with him, or is he just a bad contract for the next 3 years and he's going to be on veteran minimum deals after that?
I would love to sit here and be optimistic for you, but I really don't see it. And the reason that it's not going to be horrible, I guess, is because the cap just keeps going up. So
yeah.
$30 million, even though it sounds like an egregious number for him, if he could still get you 20 points most nights, it's not a terrible number. I would say no. For me, I guess, I would love to be able to sit here and say, hey, new coach, or maybe even just like front office, you sit the guy down and say, what are you really looking for? You have some kind of heart-to-heart. You just get him to switch his mindset. I don't know how you do that. That's coaching. A guy, at this point, the guy's probably just who he is, but he has to buy into somewhat on the defensive end. He hasn't shown the ability to be the go-to scorer that I think he wants to be.
Yeah.
Maybe he had that. Maybe they haven't been able to unfold that or unlock that from him yet. But he was awesome as a support guy. Now maybe it's just a little bit easier to be a support guy when you're around Steph. But on the Warriors, he almost earned the contract that he got because he was a problem.
Yeah.
And then last year, just when you're the top guy on other teams' scouting reports, it's a lot harder to score, and I think that showed and probably got to him mentally. So a big part of that is going to see how he bounces back this year. I would hope. I think it'd be really cool to see him turn it around, and I think that he has the skill set to go out there, especially with this roster, go out and average 25. He could average 25 a game. I could see him being like a Bradley Beal light. But I don't know that he's probably one of those guys that won't ever be able to justify his contract at this point, his number. You think of a guy like Tobias Harris, who for the last 4 years hasn't been able to live up to his contract. He's a great player.
Yeah.
Starting NBA player, but when you hear guys talk around the league, it's usually not positive about Tobias Harris, and that's simply because he's making a lot of money and not living up to that. So I could see Poole being that type of guy. You're paying a guy $30 million. You want him to be able to, not, defend a guy or score at a super high level if you can. I don't know that he's either of those yet.
Yeah, I was trying to do like quick running around the league and being like, okay, I've got Poole 3 years, like $30 million a year. Like, I'd rather have Poole than Levine. I like Levine better as a player, but Levine's going to be making $50 million in the third year of his contract, and he's got, a disaster health-wise. Like, if you're Miami, would you do some sort of Tyler Hero? Would you rather have Tyler Hero or Jordan Poole? I still feel like I'd rather have Hero.
Hero on that one.
Yeah. So I was trying to think of, like, is there another sort of semi-disaster, contract where you could, like, flip your bad for my bad sort of situation. And I was like, I couldn't really think, because I feel like he'd be pretty high up on guys I wouldn't want to have on my roster.
Duncan Robinson?
Yeah.
Is he making over 20?
Well, I actually think I heard that he's 19.
Oh, no.
So he's still high, but not 30.
Not 30.
Yeah, not 30, yeah.
It sounded from what you guys are talking about with Poole, it struck me, it's very much kind of like the Wes Welker kind of thing, where like Wes Welker would never have gotten the numbers he got if he didn't play for the Patriots all those years and then have a couple good years with Peyton Manning in Denver, right? Like, he had an incredible career, but he was a nobody for the first 2 or 3 years with Miami because he didn't have like the cast around him to like utilize his strengths, right? Whereas Poole really stood out because of that Golden State experience, and like that cast was really set up for him to like come in and play the Curry role with the second unit, and he just split it up, right? Because that's what that was made for. So to your point, in terms of like just finding the right fit for him, it really stands out that he's not in the right fit, and yeah, I don't know if you're going to find that anywhere.
Yeah, that's what I was trying. Like I said, I was just trying to like go around the league and think of like other guys with like 2 or 3 years left on their deal, making $25 to $30 million that aren't a good fit, and just be like just swap them. I feel like there needs to be like a GM like secret like WhatsApp or whatever where they can just be like, these guys are available. We're not going to put it out for everybody. This is just the secret GM one. Keep Woj and Shams away from this. This is just for us. But it's like, anybody that wants any of these people, you can have them.
The bummer, too, is there's absolutely a spot for him in the league. It's just the how much money he's making that's such the deterring factor. Yeah. I think of him, especially with how many of these teams are trying to play a faster pace, that he would fit perfectly. I mean, that's why he was so good on the Warriors. But you think, I just think of him as a perfect fit coming off the bench for Indiana. Like, he would give in a guy like Halliburton a break. I'm trying to think, like a team like Memphis, who has really struggled with depth. But with Taylor Jenkins, they now just want to push the pace for Ja. A guy like Poole could come off the bench and be an awesome spark for a team like that, but you're not going to pay a guy $31 million to do that. So he's just in a tough spot for the next 3 years. And that's why unless he can come out and ball, he's gonna be a negative talk for a while.
Yeah. Well, I guess in wrapping up our NBA chat for the week, Bronny played one game, scored 4 points in I think 22 minutes, and looked And he's going to miss the next game with an injury, an undisclosed injury or health issue. And then I saw LeBron got very angry on Twitter when people were trashing Bronny again. I do feel bad for him because it feels like he's in a really bad position where his dad has talked him up, and
he's impossible spot for him to be.
Yeah, because his ceiling, like they said, is a Davion Mitchell probably, like the 7th or 8th man, maybe doesn't even get in a playoff rotation, and yet he's guaranteed money, second playing in LA, playing with LeBron. Like, it's just rough. It's really rough. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, and it's just tough to really find a way or a path to see him even playing on that team anytime soon. They have guys ahead of him, and he's always going to be talked about.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where no matter, even if they try to bury him in the G League, even if he plays well in the G League, frankly, I mean, even as the 55th pick, you would think a guy playing well in the G League, that's fantastic. But even, they'll still find a way to make it an issue or make it a talking point. So you feel bad for the kid. I hope he finds a way to, quote, in his words, make a name for himself.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do that when you have the same name as probably the best player ever.
And your dad has a zillion Twitter and Instagram followers, and he won't stop, hyping you up, and then people get mad at you and then defending you with vile swears that he has to take offline.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I guess, LeBron's not the only one to fall prey to this. There's a lot of athletes, celebrities that have demonstrated that because they're not necessarily surrounded by people who are willing to say no to them, or that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
They get this sense like anything I can do is justified, and I don't have to worry about necessarily consequences. There are going to be no consequences because everybody's going to be on my side. But it's the worst thing he could be doing. I mean, how many times do we see it? You could go to Odell Beckham's dad, right? Like, that was a big deal 3 years ago where he was throwing stuff out there and dumping on Mayfield, right? Like, that became a big, huge news thing. It didn't help the situation. It only made it worse. This is going to be even more eyes on it because it's LeBron. It's not like Odell's dad, who nobody knew otherwise.
No.
They know barbershop or at the diner in town as his dad. But, like, this guy, everybody knows your dad. And so when he's getting all hyped up and saying things that he shouldn't even be saying in the first place, because he's trying to do the fatherly thing, he's only making the situation worse.
Yeah, and he doesn't have the comic stylings of a LaMelo Ball. What's Ball's dad's name? Lonzo? LeVar, yeah. I mean, if you're LeVar and you're saying just the most incredibly ridiculous things and you're like almost a SNL spoof of yourself, then I think it's okay. But not for LeBron. When you're like, my son could have beat Michael Jordan in his prime with one hand tied behind his back while he ate a sandwich. Like,
I wonder too, I would love to find the record or like the winning percentage for dads who do speak up for a kid and have it work out positively. Has there ever been a time where that has worked? I was thinking of, I was just reading a thing on the kid that the Suns just drafted, Ryan Dunn.
Yeah.
And the whole question for him is his shooting ability and scoring, which is fair. I think he shot 23% college, but his dad came out. I don't know why it's even a quote. He was like the 28th pick, so I'm not sure why there needs to be things written about what his dad's thoughts. But I saw something that his dad said that he's going to come in and prove everybody wrong with the shooting and everything. And it's a great story. I have a great relationship with my dad, so I am all for the support. I actually, LeBron, he's this far into it. You might as well just stay as the old dad on Twitter fighting back. So, that's who he is. But it never works. So these guys need to chill out with calling people out.
Indeed.
LeBron seems to almost have like that, and that short-term memory too, right? When he was a rookie, obviously he had a lot of success even as a rookie who didn't play in college. Like, I mean, he was just, we're talking about like Cooper Flag earlier, just stands out amongst NBA players, regardless of your age, right?
Yeah.
Like it was clear that LeBron was special and different right from the beginning. But there was a lot of people there was a lot of adversity that he faced even as that talented of a player, right?
Oh yeah.
And some of that adversity shapes you. Some of that adversity like drives you and motivates you and pushes you to like get better. And I think that shielding Bronny from all that, which there's more than there should be. There's not going to be any other second round pick who's going to get nearly as much criticism and attention. There hasn't been and there won't be. But forgetting that like that adversity can help drive you and cut you to be a better player. Like I think when you're trying to shield them from that, you're actually removing that and not helping the situation as well.
Yeah, exactly. Any other? I mean, I guess the last. Why I said that was the last NBA, but DeMar DeRozan, Kings. We all discussed that afterwards. It was just kind of good for them, I guess.
Yeah, good for him.
I mean, he's a nice player. I don't know that he I think he makes the Kings technically better, but I don't think he does a lot overall. And the Spurs somehow got another pick, and they got Harrison Barnes, who's not awful, right?
Yeah, he's a good NBA veteran. I don't know how they ended up with a first round pick for taking him. But
Yeah.
That's right on. I think it's cool for DeRozan, and like you said, Jay, it's more of a good move for the player and for the fans of the Kings.
Yeah.
He's from Southern Cal, so it's kind of moving home, basically moving home.
Get closer.
So older player, I can respect a guy wanting to ride his career out close to home.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I have a fond place in my heart for DeMar, just because he always makes me think of this incredibly funny skit with Will Ferrell and Drake pretending to be coaches of the team and of the Raptors, and they just like just go to town on the name, and it's so damn funny. If you haven't seen it, look it up. I'm sure if you look up Will Ferrell and Drake, it will probably be the first thing that comes up, because I don't imagine that they had too many other things that they worked on together. But very, very fun.
Okay. Do you guys have any other sports for the week? That was all my sports, was just NBA stuff.
They named. I think they officially named Jacoby Brissett the starter in New England, so that's big news.
That is big news. Do you think that'll track all the way through training camp? Do you think they want to sit Drake May this year?
Oh, I do. I think this team is, I think the group leading this team have gotten Robert Kraft to understand, like, hey, listen, you need to take a year where you just chill. Let's get things together and pick up the pieces from the last couple of years of the Belichick regime, and we're going to do it the right way. We got a guy here who's a pro. Maybe we're not going to win a ton of games, but we're going to be competitive. We're not going to be a joke on the field. And part of that is we're going to have the same success. And if you're selling it to Kraft, you're saying we're going to have the same success with Aaron Rodgers. We're going to have the same success with Patrick Mahomes, where those guys sat for a bit.
Yeah.
Behind a guy who was a pro, they learned how to play the game, and look at how much more successful they've been as opposed to the guys who get put out there and get like crash and burn, and you can never get back. So.
Well, in my favorite team, the Steelers, our quarterbacks are just putting out shirtless pictures. So, that's pretty much all you need to do to show you how good a year you're going to have, right? Russ is like, look at my old man rip bod, and then Justin Fields is like, oh yeah, look at me, look how jacked I am now. And that's pretty much what you want out of your quarterback room.
Does either one have a Steelers tattoo yet?
No, I don't. I mean, I think they're both on those 1-year deals. I don't think they want to commit just yet. Yeah.
Oh. Is this Tomlin's first year of not being at over 500?
It's hard. Like, the defense is really good, and they've got their offensive line is better. I mean, you look at they've won with Mason Rudolph, Duck Hodges, Noodle Arm Ben Roethlisberger, Kenny Pickett, Mason, and whoever Trubisky. Like, with that poo-poo platter, they've gone 500. So it's hard not to imagine they can't do it again with Fields and Russell Wilson.
That's a fair argument. Yeah, I can buy that.
Because I think the defense is better this year, and on offense, if one of those guys, any of these guys emerge as a decent number two, like they'll be. I mean, they only scored like 12 points a game last year. I think it's hard to be much worse on offense than they've been under Matt Canada. So it's like, I could see them be 500 easily. But that being the cap, which is the bummer, maybe a wild card team that loses in the first round again. So we'll see.
And then I alluded to it earlier, but keep your favorite football team, kind of working on a rebuild piece.
Yeah, I'm really excited for USA basketball these upcoming Olympics.
You're not getting into the Carolina game?
No, I'm optimistic. I honestly though, I am very excited to see what Bryce Young can do in year 2.
I was very excited to get a 3rd round pick for Bryce Young.
Yep. Happy for you, Jay, that you were able to turn him for something. But we'll see. I mean, I like Deontay Johnson. They usually always have, a competitive defense, but I'm going to miss Burns. We'll see. I won't waste too much time on a team that has won probably like 7 games in the last 2 years.
Well, it's just because they got the right coach, but they had the right coach before. But because the craziness of the owner, ran right out.
Yeah.
Maybe they can just get all local businesses can just put out signs that offend him, and he'll never actually make it to the facility. That'll just be like the whole city will just be like, look, it's your turn. You got to put out something. He's going to come in. He's going to rip your hat off and yell at you for an hour, but it'll keep him away from the team. So it's the best we can do. The city really supporting the team.
Doing our part.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think I brought it up last week, but I watched the end of part 1 of the Shoresy, which is a Letterkenny spinoff, and it was absolutely fantastic. This season is sort of about Shoresy's 40 in this season, and this is his last season playing, and just sort of, identity. I mean, besides being a really goofy show, there's a lot of swear words and really excellent hockey action. It was a really nice look at somebody just trying to figure out who they are if they're not this person that plays hockey, even if it is just Canada senior hockey on a tiny level. It got to me. It was very good. It's my TV moment.
I didn't really have any TV moment. I haven't been able to really watch anything lately. I'm very excited. I got a part in a stage production, a comedy coming up, so that really took up a lot of my time. I was practicing for my auditions.
Oh, nice.
But the show's going to be called the Play That Goes Wrong, and it's a
I've seen. That's really good. I've seen some scenes from that.
Yeah, and so that's the only thing that I've watched, because I actually watched a couple. I watched the show on YouTube a couple times, just so that way I didn't totally ruin my audition. And it is hysterical. If you've never seen it, it's actually really good.
Nice. Keaton.
Yeah, I mentioned last week that I was excited to start the Bear, and I'm still excited to start the Bear. But I will say, and not even intentionally to keep it sports related, I have been watching the Euro, and it's actually been really entertaining. Pretty disappointed since the U.S. is out of Copa America, but I will say that the last couple games of the Euro, there's been a couple of penalty shootouts. It has been awesome soccer. If anyone listening is into soccer and has any interest in it, this Euro is actually a great watch.
Oh, this is perfect. This will lead into my F off U.S. soccer fans. Because here's the thing. We've been competing internationally for 128 years now in international soccer. You can fit most of the countries into different states in this country. Men's U.S. soccer just not going to happen. So just give up. Our good athletes are never going to play soccer, and just let it go. It's not. We can't keep pretending like we just discovered the sport of soccer in America, and we're brand new on the block, because it's pathetic at this point. I'm tired of hearing like, well, they're gonna get it together the next time. No, it's never gonna happen. Let it go. Men's soccer, women's soccer, great, good for you. Keep going. But men's soccer, it's the saddest, most pathetic, whiny group of people I've ever heard in my life. It's over 100 years of competing with a giant country with all the resources in the world, and you still suck. So, it's not gonna happen. That's my soccer rant. Well, every 5 years of my life, I'm told that this is the year of soccer, and every year, like, America talks like they just found out about soccer like last week, and they're like, well, now that we know what it is, we're gonna start competing. And it's like, you've been competing international for over a century, so just let it go. We're basketball, football, maybe baseball, probably not. And maybe.
To your point, if there was another country that started playing football and they called it a different name, we wouldn't be able to take them serious. There was another country that started playing basketball and called it a different name, we wouldn't be able to take them serious. All these other countries that have played football, and we take it over here, we call it soccer, none of these other countries can take it serious. We can't even call it the right name.
No. But again, it's like every time they talk about it like we just started playing soccer. And it's like, no, we didn't. And most of the countries that beat us every year, you could fit into Texas. All of the countries. Like, we have all the resources. We have all the people. We have 100 years of USA soccer, over a century. Like, at this point, it's like, just take it on the chin. You guys suck. And, what are you going to do?
Oh, that's an interesting point. What countries have the most people? China, India, United States?
Yeah. And the former Soviet Union.
Any of them that have good soccer teams.
Is China not good at soccer?
China's okay. Their U.S. is better than China.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Yeah. But it just, like I said, I get tired of everybody pretending like we're some giant underdog in anything. That's why I was getting over the Olympics too, but that's a whole other story, where it's like, we're one of the biggest countries in the world. We have more resources than anybody, like, especially with sports. We're fine. We don't need, we're not underdogs in anything we do.
Agreed. I also think that all those other countries probably hate us. Probably love playing against soccer, or love playing against the U.S.
Oh, I'm sure, because we just destroyed them. We're sending over LeBron James, and we took Joel Embiid from another country. We're playing him.
It's true.
Half of our gymnasts aren't born in America, but we're like, you guys are really good. You're now Americans. And not that I know that's the spirit of America, but it's still like we're even stealing the other country's better players at other things.
I'm sure there's some kind of ceremony though to make it very official, and there's probably a certificate involved.
Yeah.
So like, there's proper paperwork and documentation. So.
Yeah. Somebody like
Clark with the first triple double last night. I don't know if you guys heard about that.
Who did?
Caitlin Clark.
Oh, nice. Good for her. I did see she was getting the rub from some of the good players finally. Like, it seems like they can't deny her anymore, I guess.
Agreed.
Like, she's getting dapped up by Brittany Griner and some of the older players now, as opposed to being, like, shunned. I think they're finally like, all right, no, whatever. Be like, she's too good to ignore. And she is. I mean, yeah.
She's not an asshole.
No.
Can't hate her.
And it's not her fault. Like, it's not her fault. She's a giant star. Like, you should be grateful that people are that excited about, the WNBA. And it's not her fault that she's, like I said, she's Tiger Woods. She's Michael Jordan. She's Magic and Larry. She's like all the, whatever that level of star that just captures people. She is that. So they just got to run with it. And it's not a knock on them for not being as popular before she got there, but it is what it is, She's great.
I would say one last interesting thing is just going to be with USA Basketball. I don't know if you guys heard Anthony Edwards come out either today or yesterday and they asked him about the team, and he was like, "Yeah, they know I'm the number one option." It's like, I mean, I'd love to hear that from him, but look at some of the other names on that roster. We'll just see how they take it.
Assuming everybody's healthy, right? Our Team USA when we get there, is the starting lineup Embiid, Kawhi, LeBron, I guess Curry, and who else would be our starter? Is it going to be all the old guys? Like, is Tatum going to come off the bench? Is Anthony Edwards coming off the bench?
I
think
that I would no. So I would say that Edwards is going to start probably with Curry as your backcourt, and then Kawhi's tough, but I think there's no way he could start because
he
that
should
would probably end all of Clippers fans like faith in humanity if he just came out of nowhere and just looked awesome right away and playing a ton for Team USA. So he probably, for his own sake, should not start. But how can you not start? Like, you have Durant.
Oh, yeah, and Durant. Sorry, I forgot about Durant. Yeah.
I don't know. I would say Steph, Edwards, LeBron, Durant, Embiid.
Okay. Because I feel like, given they're the world champs and as good a basketball player as he is, oh, and this is one more Tatum thing for you guys. Did you see Tatum standing next to Bam?
No.
I think Tatum is like 6'10", 6'11" at this point. I think he's grown. He looks like a monster.
Right? Because they keep the height from when you came into the league. They don't ever change it.
Yeah. And tall people consistently want to be listed shorter than they are. Like Kevin Durant never want. I mean, Kevin Durant's like 7'1" or 7'2". He always wants to be like 6'10". And even Wembanyama, I think, tried to make himself slightly shorter. But like, because and I know people, everyone's slightly fraudulent about their height once they especially get to the league and people stop checking. But Tatum looks like a monster next to Bam. Like, I feel like he could be a small ball 5 at this point. I know it's just sort of random, but
because I think they're both originally listed at 6'9", and I mean, it would be, I guess, a little surprising if Tatum grew and Bam didn't, but it definitely makes sense that Tatum grew. So he looks big. He looks big. I believe it.
Yeah, it's just looking at, and I know it's kind of tough to tell because you're looking at photos and then, the videos. It's not like they're all standing back to back, with perfect posture, but he just looks like a monster out there. But I just didn't. My point with the Team USA, I didn't know if they were just gonna like old guys get to start and everybody else has to just sort of acknowledge that it's old guys starting, whether or not they deserve to be the starters.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think honestly, probably yes. It's hard to imagine LeBron not starting, but at this point, Tatum's a better player.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like Anthony Edwards, Tatum.
But
yeah, I don't know.
I don't think they can do that because it's a lot more competition on the men's side than the women's side, right? Like the women's team can get away with doing the whole this rookie hasn't earned it or this person we're gonna go with the old guard kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
But that's because they've absolutely dominated the Olympic and international competitions for years. Like, it's not even close. Whereas the men, I don't even think they won the gold medal last Olympics, right? Like, I thought they got bronze.
I think they
But
did
there was
get.
something that they didn't win. World Cup. If they don't go with their best team, they might not win.
Yeah, I suppose. But I mean, those little secret behind the deal, like, I'll play, like Durant, I'll play for Team USA, but I'm not coming off the bench. Kind of,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I see. You're right.
I don't know if any of those things are at play, but, everybody's got a brand and, like, that's what makes guys like Drew Holiday awesome. Like, Drew Holiday's coming off the bench. He doesn't give a shit. He's totally fine with that. Some of the other people, it's just like, I thought my ego will let me do that. All right, then to wrap it up, did anybody eat any interesting food this week? I sadly did not.
No, it was a pretty, and I think that's pretty standard, right? It's 4th of July, burgers, dogs.
Yeah.
Maybe you mix in some kind of like macaroni salad. I don't know. That might be the extent of the week. So.
I have one. today we're doing this on a Monday. So yesterday, Sunday, I went to a 4th of July Enfield, Connecticut festival, and they had some food trucks there. And I tried a giant meatball.
Okay.
I had never had it before, and it was delicious. I wish I could remember the name of the food truck, so this isn't a very good one, but it was awesome. So if you do see, all I know is that the food truck had the logo is a big meatball with arms, and it looks upset. But
well, he's about to be eaten. Yeah.
I would give it a try. If you see a big meatball, it was like a few pounds.
And
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense. Yeah, you said the meatball looks upset, right? He looks upset, the meatball? He's not a happy meatball?
Angry meatball.
Yeah. If he's going to be eaten, because it's sort of weird when you watch, like, you go to, like, the barbecue place and it's the pig and he's eating his own ribs. And he's happy about it, which is always sort of an odd logo. But, I mean, I guess it's like, look how delicious these are. He's eating himself and he can't stop, so. But it is...
That's true.
It's odd, yeah. It seems like the meatball should be angry if he's being eaten. All right, well, thanks, everybody. We'll be back at some point next week.